What's up, everybody? Jed Johnson from dieselcrew.com. Of course, you know they call me Napalm. Got another video here in the 31 Days of Q&A series. This video is brought to you by Lift the Blob, Even If You Have Small Hands. It's an ebook that I put out back in 2012, I think. Yeah, no, 2013. You know how I remember? It's because when I first started shooting the pictures for the ebook, which is over 100 pages long, I think, I was quite fat. And by the time I was done, I was quite lean. And it almost looks like two different people executing the lifts in the video. So that puts it right around the 2013 for the release date, depending on how quickly I got the sales copy done. But anyway, if you are looking to lift the if you are looking to lift the Blob, there is no better resource than Lift the Blob. It is fantastic, and I will cover everything you need to know in order to lift it, even if you have small hands. Small-handed people can lift the Blob. The sales copy was completely designed around my friend Brad Martin, who has like 7.5-inch hands, and he lifted the Blob. So you can do it. You just got to understand how, and I will show you how to do it. Check out the description box for a link where you can pick up Lift the Blob. Check out the description box where you can see the playlist for this year's 31 Days of Q&A and other ways that you can support the channel. Today, I have a question from Doug Carney. He sent in a bunch of questions, and I'm definitely covering this one, maybe some other ones throughout the month, depending on how it goes. But I'm really not getting that many questions. I don't know if people don't like this stuff anymore, you don't care what I have to say or what, but you know, I am looking for questions, so if you want to send something in, go ahead and it will be considered. So, today, Doug is asking, I'm going to read his email, but he's talking about facelifting the Blob and feats that are actually beyond facelifting the Blob. But what this video is going to come down to is what I'm calling today the psychology of strength recognition. Okay? And the respect that onlookers have for grip strength. Okay? So let's read the email he sent me. Hey Jed, I know that face picks, so he's referring to them as face picks, but the actual term is face lift. So the Blob usually sits like this, right? The circle's like this. And you grip it like that and pick it up. What he's talking about is you turn it over and you lift it by the face. So you've got to like reach your hand almost like over a dial. I know that face picks are very hand size dependent, but wanted to know if there are any feats that qualify as impressive or noteworthy, however you define either word. Yes, I'm a bit biased because I just did the haul with magnets, a transfer from a face pick, and last year a Legacy 110, but recently Jalen Morley did a 120 lift and Tim Butler did a cool transfer, and he's got links for all those. You're not going to see that. This is where he rounds it out. Generally speaking, does anybody besides the people doing face picks really care about it as a feat? I guess that's the real question. Thanks, Doug. Doug, thanks for sending that in. And I'm glad that you went the direction that you did about do people really care, okay? So that's where this comes in. There's psychology that's involved in recognizing what the hell is going on in these videos, okay? So I kind of wrote down like a flow, okay? I'm going to go over these bullet points, add a little more detail where it's needed. So the Blob is hard enough to pick up in the regular way that when you turn over and lift it by the face, people have no idea how much harder that is, okay? So right then and there, the psychology is, I don't know what's going on here. So when people see it, even grip guys, when people see that, they don't realize how much harder it is because they've most likely never seen a blob and never tried to span their thumbs and fingers over the face of a blob. But it is much harder, and I would say it's probably 50 to 75% harder, or at least the list of people who have done facelifts is probably 50% shorter, if not 25% of the regular blob lift. So if there's been 200 people that have lifted the blob, it's probably less than 50 that's facelifted it. And I haven't looked at the records list, so I don't know the exact numbers, but it might even be a bigger disparity than that. So with a facelift, you knock it over, you put your thumb on one side, and then you reach your fingers across. And some people with even a decent sized hand, like Luke, I think his hands are about 8 inches, he has trouble spanning over and getting a good purchase on the face like that. And it's not just the length of your hand from wrist crease to longest fingertip. It's also the ability to open your thumb up. So you see here, I can make almost a 180-degree line between my thumb and my pinky very, very easily. And that is an ability that lends itself to facelifting, and a lot of people don't have that. Some people are stuck like this. So I think Luke's more of a hand like this than a 180. So that limits not only the sheer size of your hand, but the mobility of your thumb limits your ability to do heavy facelifts of blobs in the half 95 and above category. So then all of that limits the number of people that will ever be able to do this. So it's automatically discredited as a hand size thing, and even fewer people care about it. They don't realize that just because your hand will fit over the blob like that, it's not like it's just going to come up. You still have to create strength in those positions with that distal contact of the fingers and that wide open positioning of the thumb. So to give you a little tip, when I wanted to lift the blob by the face, I think only one person had ever done it, and that was Wade Gillingham. So what I did was I got a brake rotor from a tire shop in the area, and I duct taped weights to the bottom of it because there was nothing out there. You had to make your own shit back then. And it was very rusty. The brake rotor came off of a vehicle, so it was all rusty, and it had really good grip on it. So I made it harder by duct taping around the edge so that it was slippery where I was grabbing. It took me a lot of time to build the strength to lift the blob in that way, and anyone who has one of the first DVDs that I ever put out, The Shit You've Never Seen, there's a feat on there that I was the first to ever do, and I think less than 5 people since then have ever done it. So it's since been, I think it's been eclipsed by doing stuff even harder than that, but you know, it was pretty substantial, and that was 2005. So again, most people, they just don't understand the gravity of the feet, and they don't understand that even though you have big hands, you still have to work hard to do this stuff. It doesn't come easy for everybody. Sure, you see videos popping up where people do this stuff really quick, like the first time they see the inch or the blob, they lift it. Like that doesn't happen normally. It's really uncommon. But this is why world-class, all of this up to this point is why world-class elite feats don't get the recognition they deserve. But something like closing a #1 gripper gets 1 million likes, 2 million comments, stuff like that. So think about it this way. Most people will never close a #1 gripper. They think it's just some novelty thing. It doesn't matter. They're not going to put the time in. They're not the kind of person that takes on a challenge. There's no money in it. there's no reason for them to pursue the strength to close a number one gripper. So almost everyone is never going to close a number one gripper because they will not try. So what they do is they identify the number one gripper as extremely hard. Meanwhile, if they would get something like Crush, my video that shows you how to train with grippers, they could easily close the number one and go well beyond that. But because they have identified the number one gripper as practically impossible, because they're squeezing it with no technique, no warm-up, they haven't looked into anything, and they definitely haven't purchased my DVD, they're never going to close that gripper. They think, they identify that as hard, as impossible. And even though it's right beyond their reach, just outside their grasp, and with a little practice, they would be able to close it, they think that is just otherworldly. So because their awareness level is where it's at, anytime they see someone doing a feat like closing a number one gripper, they're like, shit, that guy just did something that I can't do. That's awesome, and I'm going to recognize it. And a lot more people cross paths with a number one gripper than the people that cross paths with something like the Blob or facelifting a Blob. So that is why you see all this attention for something that most of us in the grip community can do very easily, a number one gripper close, but then they just ignore when something that only, 1% of the grip community can do, then they just ignore it and pretend like it didn't happen. Happens to me and Luke all the time. We do stuff that it took us 5 years to do. We got 6,000 partials on the lift before we finally got it. We get it. We act like we just scored a touchdown. I mean, sometimes I'm looking for a football that I can spike when I finally attain stuff, and you put the video up and it's crickets, which I fully take complete ownership of that. I've seen it in several movies and TV shows by now. Like when there's no response given to something, I started saying crickets back in 2001 or 2002. So that's mine, and everybody owes me royalties. But there are many feats that I consider impressive because I had worked my ass off for those. They didn't come easy. And it might have taken me years because I would work for months, and then a contest would come up and I would get away from it. And then I'd have to rebuild my strength to where I was before I stopped. And then eventually, after weeks, months, years of toil, I finally reached those feats. And if I don't continue doing those feats, then I lose the ability to do those feats, because that's just how I am. If I lose my prime on a feat very quickly, and I have to constantly be doing stuff in order to maintain that level of strength. But like, I mean, even the response of like the cleaning the inch dumbbell 4 times in a row left-handed. I mean, I had somebody telling me I wasn't doing cleans just because it didn't end up on my shoulder and it was right here in front of my face. So, I mean, the lack of respect and disrespect of world-class feats, believe me, brother, I know all about that, and so do a bunch of us. But you have to understand that the stuff that I've covered up until this point is exactly why that is. They are completely unaware, they know they can't do it, and they just don't respect feats like that. So that's really what it comes down to, and that's what I'm talking about with the psychology, the mental side of this by the people that are watching you do what you do. And you know, the only other thing I'd have to say is don't let it bother you. You know it's hard. You know you had to work your ass off to do it. And you know you'll probably have to continue doing that in order to maintain that strength in order to do it. So just keep on building and don't worry about it. Once you get up into the upper echelons of these disciplines, these feat categories, you're going to hear a lot of crickets. And you're going to have to deal with all the applause going to people closing number one grippers. That's all there is to it, brother. So, with that, I'm going to let you go. Don't forget, Lift the Blob, even though you got small hands, is an ebook that I've sold since like 2013. It'll help you get there. The hand size thing should not stop you. If you have at least 7.5 inch hands, I know I can get you there. Smaller hands, it's going to be tougher, but I think you can still get there with time, but you got to have the knowledge and the information. So pick up the ebook. It's in the description box below. You can check out the playlist if you missed stuff. That's in the description box below. And other ways to support the channel. You can find them in the description box below, as well as some freebies that I'm giving away, some free reports. Thanks for watching. Give the video one of these. Be sure to subscribe, and all the best in your training.